VocalEye Almost Live Zoom. My Sister's Rage. Hosted by Amy Amantea. With special guest, Yolanda Bonnell.
Welcome to this VocalEye Almost Live event. My name is Amy Amantea. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Associate Director for VocalEye, your host for these almost live events, and I'm a member of the blind community. Big thank you to folks in our community, to allies of our community. Big thank you for everybody who's made donations and contributions to VocalEye as we offer this programming free of charge, and for all of the testimonials that have come in. We love reading those, so please keep those coming. They're kind of the highlights of my day to read some of those things. So thank you for that. If you feel like you want to make a financial contribution, you can go through our website, or there'll be a link posted in the chat. And there's always a link in like follow-up emails and newsletters and stuff like that. So there are always ways that you can get involved and support the work that we're doing. If you happen to be watching this particular event on our YouTube channel, well, just take that little mouse or use your keyboard and hover over and double tap on like and subscribe. Hit that space bar, click that mouse, however you're using your device. We want you to like and subscribe. VocalEye is broadcasting to you all from the traditional and stolen lands of the Coast Salish peoples, in particular the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. I want to tell you, as part of my land acknowledgement tonight, I've met a couple of new friends this week. Yolanda is one of them, who will be in our space, and another new friend that I met is local to Vancouver Island, and she is an artist that lives with disability. Her name is Lise Gillis. She's Cree and Métis, and she gifted me one of the most lovely things. She sent me lip balm, and I wasn't expecting it. And then when I asked her about it, we got on a Zoom and I chatted with her about it, and I asked her about it, and she said that she's been doing some exploration and receiving some mentorship around using medicinal, indigenous, traditional medicines and traditional plants in creating this lip balm. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit about her method. So Lise tells me that her method is to ask the plant to be a part of the medicine that she would like to offer. And if she goes to harvest a plant, pull a leaf, for example, if it comes off gently and easily, the plant is giving you the offering. And if it does not, then the plant does not want to offer. And so you respect that and you try another plant. And I thought that was a really beautiful thing that she shared with me also, that she gives respect and she thanks the plants for their medicine and for their healing powers. In her particular lip balm, she uses something called calendula, which I was embarrassed that I had never heard of before. That's the base of this luxurious lip balm that she uses. And this is an annual or a short-lived perennial. It's a herb and it's part of the daisy family. And it's originally from Southern Europe and from the Eastern Mediterranean area, but it tends to grow really well and has been long cultivated in areas that have kind of a cool, temperate climate, which we can see that here being in the province of British Columbia. And so Lise takes this, she takes the leaves of these plants, she mixes them with olive oil, she puts them in huge glass jars, and she sets them on her patio out in Duncan, British Columbia, and she lets the sun infuse the oil with the calendula, and then adds some lovely other infused oils and things like that. And then I tell you, friends, hand pours that mixture with the Cowichan Valley beeswax into those little tiny lip balm tubes. She hand pours everything. So she gave me this beautiful gift, and I have been using it ever since. It's amazing stuff. We'll send a link in the follow-up emails, and maybe I'll be able to get my hands on some and we can give some away. So stay tuned for that. But it was a really beautiful gift she shared with me, and I'd love to be able to support her work and share it with you all. Blind Bird Holistics is the name of her company. Welcome. It's Wednesday, March the 22nd, 2023, and tonight we're proud to offer you our Almost Live event number 114, 114, My Sister's Rage. And joining us this evening as we just embark on playing My Sister's Rage is Yolanda. Where's Yolanda? Yolanda's coming into the space. Yolanda Bonnell. There's Yolanda joining us in the space. How are you this evening, my friend? we need to let
Oh, there
Yolanda
we go.
know.
I got it.
You
We're
got it.
here.
Awesome.
Yes. Hello,
Awesome.
Annie.
So it's so nice to share space with you, and thank you for joining us from the future. Many of our guests in the room tonight also joining from at least 3 hours in the future, some 2, 3, 4, 4.5 hours in the future. So thank you so much for taking your taking your night to spend with us.
Of course, miigwech for having me. I'm excited to be here and to chat with everybody and to see the show again. I'm actually going to watch it tonight with everyone too. I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm excited to go on that journey again. Also, what you were talking about was really beautiful, with the way that the medicines are harvested for the lip balm. I encourage everyone to look up the honorable harvest, because that's what she's talking about. Is the way in which that we harvest and forage from the land. There's like a set of like rules or values that talk about how you engage with the land, and it's like asking, and like the land will tell you if it's ready to be taken, and don't take the first thing you see or everything you see. So there's a lot of within the honorable harvest, there's a lot of good information in there to how to strengthen that land relationship. Thank you for sharing that story.
It's a thing that I think about when I do land acknowledgements, is like, what are we, like my sister's rage, of course, as I've been telling folks for weeks about this upcoming program, as you heard, I start to groom folks. What's coming up, right? Whet people's appetites. But I was thinking about the idea of using laughter as medicine, and it sort of leaped me to medicine in general. And it just happened that Lise sort of fell into my life at a time where I didn't even know that I needed her, and then it's like the universe put us together, and it was really interesting how that happened. We can talk about that some other day, but to receive a package in the mail that was unexpected was like that. This never happens anymore, right? And then for it to be this collection of healing, a healing gift is really all I can call it. And then she said to me, you can also like rub it on little cuts or wounds, because calendula really is something that is healing for the skin. So now I'm gonna I got a pimple. I'm gonna put on. I'm gonna walk around putting lip balm all over my head.
There's all kinds of stuff we use. Bear grease. You slap bear grease on anything, and that'll work. That's good.
Ooh, good to know. Probably a little harder to find. I would
a little
imagine.
bit harder to get. Some places, you can get them from some native stores, but also like. Indigenous women are some of the most generous people I know. Like, I've been gifted so many beautiful things from other Indigenous women that honestly were like, I love us.
I'm gonna take a page out of the book, because there was a time where I was, especially over the pandemic, where I would just pop something in the mail and send it to somebody. Then I would feel kind of guilty about it, because I was thinking about the carbon footprint. But it was the pandemic, and then I was like, well, wait a second, nobody's flying anywhere. So I think like
it's fine. It's fine.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyways, I hope that as humans, we're all trying to do better one day at a time.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to forgive ourselves for some of the things, and sometimes we have to make bigger changes or smaller changes. And so I'm a work in progress, Yolanda. I'm a work in progress.
We all are. They didn't build this world and society in a way that gives us good, healthy land relations, because they made it nearly impossible for so many of us to do that. So, keeping folks poor is, one of the biggest reasons why climate change is the way it is, and our relationships with land are the way they are, is because we've been kept in this like position where we don't often have choices. We're not given choices to make better choices. We're not given the opportunity to make better choices because we don't have anything to do that. We don't have the tools or the means. So
I think that's a really fair point. So you're not only an artist, it sounds like it sounds like you're a climate activist and politically involved in all sorts of things, which I love. But tell us a bit about you and your background, Yolanda.
I'm going to introduce myself in my language. I want to give a physical description of myself too, just for folks who might not be able to see me. I am a brown-skinned femme. My hair is pink. You can't really tell. It's like really, really light. I wear glasses, and I have a black t-shirt on that says "Water is Life." Ani, Bojo, Yolanda Nindishtakas, Gijiba Mainga Nindigo, Makwa Migisi Nindodam, Fort William First Nation in Donjaba, Dagrando Ninda. So it's hello, my name is Yolanda Bonnell. My spirit name is Circling Wolf. I am Bear Clan on my great-grandfather's side and Eagle Clan on my great-grandmother's side. So it's really funny that I was named after a wolf. So a lot of animals. I'm originally from Fort William First Nation, which is near Thunder Bay, Ontario, otherwise known as Superior Robinson Treaty Territory. But myself and my practice is now based here in Dagrando, Toronto, and I've been here for just over a decade. I'm a playwright and a performer, and a producer and a director and a facilitator, teacher. I do all kinds of things in the arts and beyond. And yeah, I'm the playwright and director of My Sister's Rage. And yeah, I don't know what else. I'm queer, two-spirit. My pronouns are she and they. I'm Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, and part South Asian. I also have some ancestry, European ancestry, Scottish ancestry. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Do you identify with disability, Yolanda?
I do actually. There's so many identifiers in my introductions. I always forget literally everything. I'm like, how many things am I sitting? But yes, I do identify.
All the intersections, right?
All the intersections, crisscross applesauce. Yes, I am neurodivergent. I also have madness and some physical disabilities when it comes to chronic pain in my body. Yeah.
I can relate very much.
Yeah, you know.
To a lot of those things, actually. Being an artist and wearing many hats, and so a lot of those things really resonate with me. Just before we hit play, what can we expect from My Mother's Story coming up? Are there some content warnings we want to throw out, or I don't know, what would you like to gift us with before we hit play?
Yeah, well, the performers will give you a content warning, but what I guess I will say is, you know, I wrote it, I wanted to write a love letter to the Indigenous women in my family. So it's really a gift to, really it's a gift to so many Indigenous families and matriarchs, but also to anyone who you know, is going through grief or has suffered from grief and is working to find their way through that. And so I hope everyone can like find a piece of themselves in this story. Yeah,
that's a lovely offering. There is going to be a 5-minute intermission during this piece, and at which time Yolanda and I are going to come back and maybe chat a little bit, as much as you can in 5 minutes, you know, about what we experienced, or we'll see where that goes. But for now, my friend, I invite you all to sit back and enjoy. This is My Sister's Rage. Go ahead, Rick, and hit play.
Due to copyright restrictions, this feature presentation has not been recorded. Please check below for more information, including links to the material if it is hosted elsewhere.
Take a 5-minute intermission, just to stretch, maybe have a little bio break. We got Yolanda back with us. I'm curious. I mean, you know, you're the playwright. Have you got a favorite character in this? Because everybody's gonna say it's Wanda, like, right? I know. I mean, killing your darlings.
Yeah, it's like, how do I choose my favorite children? Like, yeah, most people say Wanda. That is a pretty like standout personality. But I honestly, I have a deep love for each one of them, and I remember like watching it when we were, you know, when we were rehearsing and like and during the run, and just like, I feel like you could shift the focus to any one of them could be the main character, like any one of them, because they're each on their own journey. And so I really do. I love them all like equally. I know it's like a diplomatic answer, not very fun, but like I just, each one of them has like a special place in my heart, because like aspects of them are like made up of like me or like my family. And so, and they're kind of just like sprinkled throughout. So I really do love all of them.
Well, I guess, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, because one of my questions for you for the Q&A, but I'll just ask it now, was what are these stories based on? And so it sounds like they're based on people you know, and fragments, and they kind of, you put pieces together and make a character, so to speak.
Yeah, like I'd say a good 90% of the anecdotes and stories and sort of happenings in this play are based on my life. It's like loosely based around the summer that my own grandmother was in a coma. And it was the first summer I got high with my cousins. And so I'm a little bit of stuffy in that scene. And yeah, I one of the big glaring things that I remember about that time was how there was such a separation between the youth and the adults, and like the adults had their own stuff going on and the youth had their own stuff going on. Like me and my cousins had our stuff and they had theirs, and we often didn't know what was going on with each other, right? So that was really kind of the big like crux of the story that I wanted to tell. But yeah, a lot of it is based on my own stories, things that happened to me, and the characters are all sort of split in fragments of like people I know, myself, and my family. Yeah, I always want to be careful when I'm infusing my own stories into it, just for like the safety of myself and the performers. And yeah.
How did you hold space for that? How did you make sure that people felt safer?
Oh, the whole process was done in a way that prioritized the safety and care of the performers. And everybody knew about it. Like everyone knew, like no design choice, no aesthetic choice, no choices were going to be made at the detriment of the performers. They're the ones holding the story. They're running with it. They're holding it the entire time. And too often I find in rooms that and we talked about this, like the preciousness of, the story, sort of being rooted in ableism. And so, when you're not putting the performers or even just people, humans, and their well-being and safety at the forefront, then what are we even doing? So there was a lot of care in the room. There's a lot of space held for if anyone needed to leave or lie down or talk, we would stop and talk. There was one day, and I'll share this because it was so special. And I said to them, I'm like, when I die, when I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to remember this. There was a particularly hard day that I was having a particularly hard day, and I was really emotional that day, and I kept falling. I like fell down the stairs, like fell off, I fell over the thing. And I know like, and we were a group of Native femmes, and everyone was like, there's something going on, and so we all took it, and I started crying, and I was like, no, it's fine. Like, well, I'll keep going. And they all stopped, and the entire cast was like, no, you always make space for us, so we're going to make space for you. And they sat there and let me cry. And then they sang Skinnamarink Dinky Dink, like a very soft lullaby version of Skinnamarink Dink. And Nicole sang a very beautiful song, like honor song for me. And they just let me cry because I needed to do that. And they all held the space for me and brought medicine. And so we had a reciprocal relationship in terms of how we cared for each other to make sure that we were safe in the process.
I thank you for sharing that, because I know it takes a certain amount of vulnerability to share it, but also to have that kind of space in the rehearsal room, which is so contradictory to many spaces I've been in as a performer, where it's like, no, we are rehearsing 6 days a week, 10 hours, maybe we'll sneak in more if we can, calls afterwards from the director saying, I want to talk about this. And you're like, hello, I'm not in the rehearsal room. Do I get it? Do I get a moment to myself? And like 3 weeks of intense rehearsing before you do a run of a show. Like,
yes,
very typical rehearsal space.
Yes.
So to be able to stop and make space for like things that come up. Oh. Do the little dance. 5 minutes goes by so fast.
Oh, it's still going.
Yolanda, I think maybe we can pick this up.
Absolutely.
in the Q&A, and hopefully I will remember to pick it up because that's my neurodiversity show.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
But we'll have lots of things to talk about,
Absolutely.
including I have some more questions about Wanda.
Yes.
So here we go. Friends, sit back and enjoy the second part of My Sister's Rage. Rick, go ahead and hit play. That was My Sister's Rage. You're going to welcome Yolanda back into the space. Hello, Yolanda.
Hello.
It was a real gift to be able to witness that together with this group. So thank you for bringing it to the space. Can we pick up where we left off at intermission?
Absolutely. Yes.
Because I was loosely sort of getting to this idea of this Wanda character, part narrator, part like breaking the fourth wall, part like perhaps in air quotes the every elder. I don't know, the every ancestor, maybe.
Yeah.
What when you were contemplating this character, what were you thinking was the artistic device of this character?
Yeah. Wanda was one of the first characters that kind of came to my head when I was writing this. When I think about like my family and like the laughing women in my family, I have this aunt that it's my sister, my grandmother's niece. But when you live on a reservation, like your entire family lives on the reservation most of the time. Right. So like your cousins, you're like close with family members that typically you're not, right. Non-Indigenous people you're not close to. Like who knows their grandmother's niece, Yeah. It was my auntie Rocky, and she lived down the road, like across the lawn from us, and she would always come in like these plaid dresses and then these kerchief in her hair, and she just like would stop, come down the road, and we'd sit around the table, and she'd tell all these jokes, and she had this like really loud laugh, and like all my aunties do and did, and I really wanted to like evoke a bit of my auntie Rocky, her like energy and spirit, and infuse this into this character. Really the biggest thing I really wanted Wanda to be was the conduit between the witnesses and the story. Right. And I really wanted to talk subtly, not so subtly, about lateral violence, and sort of these misconceptions and stereotypes that we have, particularly about Indigenous women, and in contemporary Canada and off and on reservations. So, even this like idea that the kids are seeing her with this paper bag, and they like, there's this assumption that she's a drunk, and then she sort of flips that narrative on them. So that was it was a part of that. And then the conduit was like, I often in my work have this, I don't want to call it a trickster character because it really isn't. It's just that often in many Indigenous stories, the sort of like wink and nod kind of character is called the trickster character. And so I think she kind of is that, but there's more to her than that. And as I was sort of writing her and writing this like integration with the witnesses, because for me, the witnesses are a part of the story as well. And I use the term witnesses instead of audience often, because witnessing is not a passive act. It's an actionable act. You're learning something when you witness. You're part of a ceremony when you witness. You're part of it, right? And for me, the witnesses are part of it. Otherwise, why are we doing it? Yeah. And so I thought that relationship was really important. And then as it sort of went on, I was like, oh, this is like, there's some like accessibility in here that's happening inherently with Wanda being that sort of conduit between the two, that she can sort of like travel the worlds in a way that the other characters can't. She can break that fourth wall. She can travel all the worlds. She sees every world that's happening in the story.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, there's so much I want to unpack in all of what you just said, because there's a lot of sort of artistic devices that are also access pieces as well. Like, each of the women in this piece are like have a moment where they do, and I don't know how.
Oh, I call them suspension moments.
Suspension. Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
because I was looking for the term for that, where we hear
Yeah.
the whisper kind of the description of what it is that they're doing in these moments. Can you talk to me about that as an artistic choice, and what you were trying to share, have your witnesses be a part of with that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I call them suspension moments because it's like when you're walking and you get caught in a thought, and you get suspended in a thought, or you get suspended in a moment, or you're like going through turmoil in your head, and like you could be anywhere, and you're caught up in all these, and each one of them have their own sort of thing that they're wrestling with. And so I kind of wanted to capture a little bit of their inner struggle, but then ending with that wind, that ancestral wind, which is sort of like Andrea kind of pulling them back out. So and the description of the movement, when I wrote it, was it's kind of abstract, but also not when you read it and when you hear it, because you can kind of understand, like Rena's like pulling invisible threads from her body, and Tash is pulling invisible threads from their head, and so like they're all linked to these sort of struggles that they're dealing with. And I wanted the action, because it's written in the text, the movement is actually written in the text. And I wanted it spoken and whispered and overlapped, so that it sounded almost like, when your thoughts are doing this sort of thing. And also, like, there's ancestral voices in there too, right? Like, how do our ancestors communicate with us? What are the different ways in which they tell us that they're there with us, or tell us that they're helping us? And I think there are so many of those so many of that happens in the piece. But I really wanted us to hear what they're doing, and they can hear it. And also there was a conscious decision to make it an access point as well. And like I said sort of earlier when we were talking beforehand, I really want to work towards integrating different other access points like integrating them into the text themselves. So we don't have to do separate performances that are like audio described or ASL, like that. They're all sort of in one, and we'll see how that goes.
It's a conversation that happens a lot in creative access around what it is when you can build an access from the beginning. And then there's also this, like, how do we manage conflicting access needs? People that, we want to put everybody in a space together, and that feels like that the concept of radical inclusion, which I think is beautiful, but then sometimes in practicality doesn't work so well. So you're right. I think it's a bunch of sort of trial and error to figure out how some of this stuff works. I know that I had been in a relaxed performance environment where people were able to move around, and as somebody with blindness, I found that to be really disorienting, because I couldn't tell about people moving around or children moving up and down aisles. And it wasn't the noise necessarily. I was okay with that, but it was like the movement, and I was distracted by it because I couldn't visually track it.
Yeah,
right? So, like,
that makes sense.
It kind of took me out of the world of the story, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to know, right? So yeah, I mean, it's I think it's the continuing thought always in how we bring access to pieces, and how we serve the work and we serve the listener. We talk about that always here at VocalEye, how do you serve the work, and how do you serve in our case, the listener, right? Or the
totally.
the witnesser. Okay, friends in our audience, you also have an opportunity to have a chat with Yolanda, to ask questions, to share things about what you experienced, what you witnessed tonight, your takeaways. We invite that. Again, I always say I don't have to wait very long, and somebody's got a hand up. So, so we've got Nancy. Nancy just had a birthday yesterday.
Mino Dibishkam, happy birthday, Nancy.
Hello. That was great. I really enjoyed that. There's a question I want to ask. The play that Wanda played, did she do all the jokes? Like, was she doing all the jokes the whole night?
Oh, I wrote the jokes.
They're hilarious.
Thank you. I didn't. Some of them are not my, like, some of them are jokes that like are internet jokes, or like old jokes, or like jokes that I heard growing up. The Whoers one actually was at my cousin's wedding when I was a young girl, and my cousin, one of my cousins was emceeing the wedding, and
Okay.
had one side of the room who, and then the other side of the room who, and then said they had the best tours, and I thought it was the funniest thing,
Oh,
and
awesome.
so I had to put it in.
Yeah, that was great. And the mother, who played the mother role?
The matriarch, you mean the one in the
Yeah, the one that
hospital
was
bed?
always, I don't know if she was drunk or she's on Medicaid. You know, she said she has her medicine in her bottle, in her purse, and everything
Oh,
else.
Wanda.
Wanda, yeah, so she was good.
Oh yeah, that's Monique Mojica.
Yeah, that was good. And the other thing at the end, I like how they all said "I love you" to like almost kiss and make up and say "I love you," because it made me feel like, you know, that's what we need to hear. You know, to say to our children we love them, and that was
Absolutely.
awesome at the end. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for doing this.
Me
And I like the music and the birds out in the fire pit and everything else. It just, you know, it was sad and good, and it was actually, you did a wonderful job. Thank you. I'd like to see another part.
Miigwech, thank you so much. That means a lot.
Thanks, Nancy. We never know. We might be able to bring Yolanda back in the space with future work. That would be so exciting. I too, I will echo some of what Nancy said in that, Yolanda, when you talked about the audience being the witness, I felt like I was invited in. I didn't feel like I was simply sort of a bystander watching something. I felt like, okay, I've been invited, especially into the ritual at the end around the death and the drumming. I was like, oh, I've really been invited into something very special. And I don't take that for granted. So that's why I said when we came in that this feels like a bit of a gift.
Miigwech.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write this piece? Is this one of those things that took several years to develop?
No, actually, weirdly enough, this actually took not very long. Out of all the things I've written, this took the shortest amount of time to not only write but then get produced. So like it was bananas.
Mhm.
I applied to a playwrights residency program in Gros Morne, Newfoundland, through Playwrights Workshop Montreal. And I applied with like I actually just read my application for some reason, but I had 3 scenes written, and then like a rough outline of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do with the characters in the story. And I was like, I have no idea. And the first week I stared at my computer. And then the second week I suddenly had a burst of like, it all came to me, and I just like sat in the library overlooking the St. Lawrence and just wrote the story. And you know, and then I just sort of filled it out over time. Like there were a couple of workshops that we did. TO Live jumped on pretty quickly. Studio 180 jumped on really fast because they wanted to do workshops in tandem with the show. And so for the last few years, while I've been creating the show, I've also been doing workshops with high school students around the piece. And they used a recorded reading that we had done online, a Zoom reading during the height of the pandemic. Everyone was little boxes, and which was difficult for the piece, but it still went over quite well. And yeah, so I mean, I did that residency in 2019. And it was meant to be, we were supposed to do, like, I think it would have been produced earlier had the pandemic not hit, but it was really fast. And I think it was just because it was so much about, like, it was so much based in so much of my reality. And I really worked with my ancestors in the land. I really invited my ancestors in. I was like, please, like, help me write this. And I just felt like they really showed up and showed out through it.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me because the writing process I find the writing process to be so challenging.
It is.
You made it seem so easy, Yolanda.
I know. Nobody was more surprised than me, and every other playwright at that residency was so mad because I was like, I finished my draft, and they were like, what? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But like, you know, it just sort of happened. And like all of those like anecdotes about like Andrea getting hurt, those are all my sister's stories. Like that happened. Every single one of those things happened to my little sister growing up. She always was hurting herself. Like, it was kind of easy to pull some of these scenes because it was like, I was just writing my own memories in some of the cases. So I think that's sort of what made it snap through. But yeah, because listen, there's one play I've been working on since 2016. So like, this is what I'm saying.
This is the human piece I wanted to hear. that you do have some works that are still like, set that to the side.
Yeah,
come back to it when I have a different thought about it.
Yeah, this is an anomaly of a play.
Do you know what's next for My Sister's Rage? Is there something next for My Sister's Rage?
There was murmurs at one point of a remount potentially. One of the things I really want to do is I want to tour the video to communities. It was an idea that I had a year ago, and I did pitch it to Mike at Tarragon, and they're really excited about supporting it as well. But it's like a half-baked idea about bringing it to, I'm thinking about because the play is so much about community. Like there's, I'll be honest, like a lot of the humor didn't go over as well as I know it would in a community, because there's such different lived experiences, right, being urban based versus like being on a res, and none of worse or better, it's just different, right? Yeah. And so a lot of the colloquialisms, a lot of the jokes, like specific things are very specific to certain areas. So I want to bring it to those areas, and those people, like those communities, don't often get to engage in art the same way because they're so isolated and they're not in the cities as much. And so Donna Michelle St. Bernard said something really beautiful one time about, I don't want to be talking about community more than I'm in community. And so I really want to like tour it, or like I'll mass a little team and like tour it around and like have like Indigenous community members read the play themselves, like they do a reading of it, because I know that like it unlocks a lot of things for folks, and representation is so important, like it's like seeing our stories, hearing our stories when we don't often get to is a really important thing. And so it's always at the forefront of my head, is like, how can I connect back with my community? And this play was a big one because it was about people in my community. It was about where I'm from.
There's a lot of really lovely moments in this, but I think one of the things, so at the intermission you were talking about the gap between the family in terms of like the generational gap.
Yeah.
And that the adults have their things going on and the teens have their things going on, and it's like both of them really are like, what could be going on for them?
Yeah.
Right. And then there is this sort of gathering of family, gathering of community around the matriarch that ends up sort of bringing everybody back together in a way that I thought was really endearing, and I think a way that also likely resonates with a lot of families.
Yeah,
perhaps.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really beautiful beautiful thing to show. I'd like to hear more from you about, and you and I have talked about this offline, but more from you for our audience's sake about ableism within theater culture. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, all day long. Yeah, I mean, look, like the theater industry is a wild ride, and is incredibly in and of itself, in the way that it's structured and the way that it's sort of always been, is rooted in ableism. It's rooted in the exclusion of specific community members, at the exclusion of folks with disabilities, at the exclusion, for a long time, it's systemic racism for people on stage. Like there has been a history of intersectional issues within the community, within the industry itself. which I did not know about, because again, I'm from a reserve. I had no idea. I had zero knowledge of the theater industry when I moved here, and I was so excited to be a part of it, and I get into it, and then I'm like, oh, and every show I did, I was like harmed a little more, or traumatized a little further, you know, or somehow, and was like, oh, I see what's happening. So this is all a part of the capitalist wheel, which I was so naive to think that art wasn't, you know, and
because we call it not for profit.
Because we call it not for profit, and so it's fine.
Yeah.
But like, no, because at the core of why people want butts and seats to show days, like it has to be, you know, everything has to be perfect for reviewers and critiques, so that it gets more people to come out, and so that more donors, more patrons. And I get it, like we definitely need more arts funding. I'm not here to say we don't need funding for the arts. We need more funding for the arts, and that can't be taken away because it's all we have, right? And so I understand on levels. I understand like why some of these things function the way they do. But it doesn't have to be this way. And there are other ways of doing it. And a lot of my work over the years, and the work that I've done with my collective, Manadunes Collective, is really like shifting the focus of like radical care within rehearsal spaces. And so that starts at the very beginning when you're negotiating the contract. And so over the last few years, I've sort of learned how to, you know, I did a lot of learning on how to read contracts. And when I was working at Native Earth, I worked for a theater company for a couple of years. And that really was a big thing for me, because I learned how to draw up contracts, and I learned about the coded language in contracts. And like, as like a neurodivergent person, or, you know, for anyone who might have like dyslexia or any other type of like, you know, a disability when it comes to like understanding words, or like,
yeah, they're not written in plain language.
It's not written, not at all. You have to go to look up the CTA agreement to find out what the clause is. So it'll have the clause, then you have to go to another site to find a different agreement.
Otherwise, you just say, I agree to clause 1, 2, 3.
Exactly.
And you have no idea what that means.
No idea what you're agreeing to. And so, you know, I come from the beginning, and I'm trying to negotiate some things out of the contract and then other things in. Because I just like this whole idea that like, yeah, I just think that it's everyone is, there's so many people that are so precious about their work. And I get it. As a creator, I understand, because I feel it too, right? Like, no, like I want it to look this way, or I want it to be like this, and I want it to be like that. But then I'm like, but who am I leaving out when I'm doing that? Or who am I hurting when I'm doing that, just because I want it to look good? Like it does, you know, like, oh, like a strobe would be really cool here. But then like, do I want to give people seizures? Like, you know, the lighting designer wanted haze for the opening scene in the show. But before I made any design decision, I talked to the cast first. Does anyone have a problem with haze? And somebody was like, it dries my throat out. And I was like, all right, no haze. Wow. Yeah. Did you see how easy that was?
Yeah.
Like let it go. Nothing is worth harming somebody for.
I think that's a real strong takeaway, Yolanda, and something that we the industry, we don't think about enough in the work that we commission and the work that we put on our stages. It's really all about getting butts and seats, and that comes with a high production value, which comes with let's face it, poor disability aesthetic, poor accessibility. You know, I hear some theater companies say things like, well, we can't have an ASL interpreter on stage because it'll block sight lines.
It'll ruin the aesthetic of the show.
The aesthetic. You know, we can't put captions on the stage. It'll block the projector. And like, you know, okay, right? Like, when did this become ugly? And thanks for telling me that my life is ugly, essentially.
Listen, like, this is what I'm saying. We had an ASL, we hired an Indigenous ASL interpreter for my solo show Bug.
Mhm.
And we integrated her into the show. It wasn't for the full run at the time. It was only for like it was like a few shows, a handful of shows, mostly because she was like a mother of 6 and she lived in a different city. It was like, we don't want to,
You were
but like,
honoring her access needs.
exactly. But like, it was so beautiful to have her on stage with me. And her family came to the show one night, and like I think 3 members of her family are also deaf, and like we're able to enjoy the show. And like they afterwards during the Q&A, they were like, you know, I it was such an honor to be able to watch my daughter perform and to see her do it and like tell the story and like and in a way that they would never have gotten to before, you know, like it doesn't ruin anything, it makes it better. And you can find ways of making it amplify your story rather than take away, if that's what you think it's doing. It's not. There's no way that any of those things are going to make it worse. Also, why are we doing raked stages? Why is that a thing? I did a show with a rake stage. I was like, are you, why?
Yeah.
My back says no, sir.
Yeah. No, thank you.
No.
Yeah, because there's a system that's in place, and there are butts that need to go in seats, and these butts are a part of the system typically. You know, I'm a settler person, a white settler person, but I also recognize that typically, if you're over 65 and you're a white settler person, that's who has the money and the privilege to buy tickets.
Yeah.
Because theater's also not affordable, so they tend to, in some way, by purchasing tickets, dictate the kind of stuff that goes on stages.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly it. Because the boards and the leaders are catering to the patrons. And so often when you see institutions that are quite older and running on older models, a lot of the stuff that they're programming are white playwrights, because they're catering to their patrons.
Yeah.
And the more like experimental, diverse, intersectional theater they show, the less connected and represented the patrons feel. Yeah. Which I say, well, it's been how many years of us never feeling seen. Yeah. It's time for us to feel seen. And
as you know, the circle back to representation means a lot, and I think about that with disability all the time, which is one of my largest intersections. And you know, people will have heard me say this in the space many times, and this will, I think, resonate with you too, which is, if we're close to 25% of the population, where is that representation in the stories that are told? Right? Not. Somebody told me once that there's roughly 2% representation of disability on stages and screens combined, and less than like a fraction of that is authentic, right? So you have the able-bodied folks playing the disabled characters, or the story that's not written by somebody that has a disability. And then, you know, you can get into the whole minutia about, okay, well, you know, what if we bring in consultants that have disability, or cultural consultants, or, you know, there's so much minutia. But I think until we come to a place as a society where we are handing privilege to storytellers to make and create authentic stories, we don't seek true equity.
Absolutely.
That's just my bag. That's my
absolutely.
That's what I think.
Yeah, the thing that I've been saying for the last couple of years, which I learned, what I realized as I was watching sort of even myself feel more represented by some of the things I was seeing. I've only felt represented on stage myself 3 times. 3.5. And I've been saying representation is harm reduction. The more that we see ourselves on stages, on screens, you know, in the media, actually truly authentically represented, the less likely we are to feel alone in the world, the more likely we are to see our place in the world, and the more likely we are to fight to stay there. I think so much about, and that's across the board. That's disability representation. That's like racialized representation, queer representation. Like it's all across the board of intersectionalities. Like, I think a lot about like the youth suicide crisis in Attawapiskat and a lot of the other northern reserves, because this country has made it very clear from the beginning of its creation that they don't want us here. They're very, very clear about that. We see it the longer we have no clean drinking water, the longer our lands are being destroyed and ripped up, the longer our rights are taken away and we don't have them, the longer our sovereignty is gone. They don't want us here. And so how that must feel as a young Native person to be living in a place where your community, and to feel like you're not wanted in this world, not just like in your home or on the street or in your school, but in this world that they're actively trying to eradicate you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Tash exists, Val exists, Steffi exists, Lainey exists, so that, you know, some of those kids might be able to like see themselves in real life and say, oh, like there are other people like me, you know. They win when they make us feel alone. They win. That's what they want.
Yeah. Whew. There's a lot to think about there, and I agree with, I think, every word that's come out of your mouth. So thank you for being so honest and transparent about it, because I think it needs to be said, and I think it needs to be said over and over and over and over and over again. Because we all talk about it. Where's the active change? Right. So there's only so much we can do as the creators and the artists, and we are doing that work. We are right.
Yeah.
But where do we ask for the big fish in the pond to get on board and actively change instead of just talking about it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Like you said, a witness. Yeah. Right. When you are a witness, you are accountable. And a lot of people just go home at the end of the day and they go to sleep, and they wake up in the morning and they go, oh, I have to think. We have an Indigenous playwright. I have to think about that today. Oh, we have a character with a disability. I have to think about that today. And then at the end of the day, they go home and they don't think about it. Yeah. But those are our lives. We think about that. We don't take that every single day of our lives. Yeah. I digress, because I could spend hours talking about this with you. And but we have a prize draw to get to. So we're gonna bring Sarah into the space. Sarah's got folks' names. And Sarah, I think what we'll do is we'll draw 2 names tonight, because I'm going to gift some of this luxurious lip balm that Lise Gillies makes to our friends. So our 2 folks tonight will each get 2 of those in the mail. So
also, you know what? How about you draw 3 names? I can give a copy of Bug.
What's
of my play Bug?
Well,
I have a published play.
Is it, what format is it in, Yolanda?
Oh, it's a book. Oh, there's an audiobook. I don't have a copy of it. Okay, get back to you.
Let's put a pin in that one. We'll go. I mean, I appreciate the offer, but let's because if you can maybe get us a link to how we can get a book, we can do that, or maybe how we can play a book in the space. Now I'm just riffing off the top of my head with no plan. So let's go with our 2 winners tonight. So Yolanda,
I tried. 2. Okay.
All right. Sarah, it's in your hands.
Okay. This is for the first prize?
Yep.
I have to say a word, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say wiener.
Wiener?
I was expecting donut, but wiener's good too.
Wait. There's the wiener one. Tilo.
Tilo's the wiener.
You're the wiener.
Congratulations, Tilo. And one more name.
Ooh, we're going to go with Land Back.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We can hear you, Tilo. Hang on.
Okay.
Nancy Gill.
And Nancy, the birthday girl. Wonderful. That couldn't have worked out any better. So Nancy and Tilo will make sure that we send you in the mail your prize.
Thank you. What a wonderful gift.
Yeah. I think you'll really enjoy it.
I like to get a lip
Thank you.
balmer too.
Yolanda, thank you so much for joining us in the space. You are welcome back here anytime you have, anytime you want to, but we'd love to share more of your work. So please keep us in mind. And I know that this won't be the last time that you and I share space together.
Not at all. Miigwech, Chimigwech, everyone. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Thank
Good
you.
night.
VocalEye, vocaleye.ca. Special thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the British Columbia Arts Council, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver.